Yeah, I'm just jamming along here tonight. Hi everyone. You know who this is, so I don't need to make any announcements. But it's nighttime here in the casa. I'm doing this tonight because I'm actually going to be spending most of the morning tomorrow um, hanging out with local political figures. There's going to be like a political workshop over in Carlisle, Pennsylvania, which is about 30 minutes from here. And so I'm going to be there until about noon, and then I'm going to hang out and have lunch and a few other things until about 2 o'clock. Get back here about 3. And then I'm going to go over to our local citywide LGBT center and watch a thing on the National Geographic special they had on gender, which, of course, is kind of interesting to me because I'll hear a lot of things that talking about gender identity and stuff that I already kind of know, but I'm interested in seeing it. I've heard people say that a lot of trans people are not happy with the way it's presented, but they have to remember that this is actually being created for a cis audience. It's not for like us who've already been through it. It's for people who have really a lot of questions. And in fact, one guy I know who's a manager down at the restaurant I go to a lot, he actually even said, "There's so many things I wanted to ask you about this, but I didn't even know where to begin." And this show really it answered a lot of questions. Uh, I've been kind of slacking off on the writing this week. I think it's just a combination of being busy, getting busy once more, getting reinvested in the whole political thing. And I know the one night I didn't write anything. Sorry, because I was slightly drunk and I didn't want to do that. And then the last couple of nights I've been real tired, so I haven't actually felt much like writing. Um, it goes. I mean, for a while there, I was churning out 1,000, 1,100, 1,200 words a day, and that went on for about a month. Good. So I'm kind of taking it easy, but I'm still hitting 500 words, and I'll get to writing tonight before I go to bed. Um, I'm in an interesting spot, and this was kind of something I touched on in one of my posts the other day. Is that one of the reasons why it's taking me a little longer to make my way through the story right now? Is that I'm having to deal with writing to kids as a little bit more aware and adult like. I mean, they're more mature now. One a comment I made today on the blog post was when you read what the kids are doing now, and if you go back and look at the stuff that was written about them in the first novel, go back, 2 years, 3 years actually, and look at how they acted, look at how they actually spoke. Um, they've grown, they've matured, especially Carrie. Uh, Carrie seems to have a lot more confidence, but he also tends to really go into the depths of despair a lot quicker now, and that's a lot of that's brought on by puberty. He's got his ups, he's got his downs. Some people might even say he's bipolar. Annie doesn't sound as innocent as she used to. She still speaks rather intelligently, but she sounds more mature. When she's talking about more. She's actually coming across as far more mature in her dialogue. So I'm increasing things as I go along. And another thing that came up is, well, it hasn't actually come up, but I've been working on it. It's that I'm thinking more and more about what's going to be happening to them down the line in the future. And it's kind of having me set up things that I need to do in the current novel. There are things that I've kind of stated and kind of pointed out that are going to come into play in the later novels because I know what's happening in them. So I'm kind of having to throw a few things out here and there to get them all set up. It's oh, sorry. It's an interesting thing to do. And one of the things that came up when I was thinking all of this is a couple of missions that the kids are going to be going on. I had to explain why certain things were happening in those missions. And I came up with the explanation kind of today. Seriously, while I was going to the bathroom. And I was just kind of sitting there and going, yeah, that would work. I could see how that would work. So, you see, writing, it takes place wherever you are. And while I am not Neil Gaiman and I'm writing notes of a new novel in a notebook that I brought with me to a concert, I think most of you or some of you have seen that photo. And if you haven't, it was Neil Gaiman actually went to, I think it was a Nick Cage concert. And somebody got a photo of him as everybody was filing out. He was actually writing notes in his notebook. And they snapped a picture of it. And apparently, before the guy posted it, he asked Neil, Neil, what he was doing. And it was like, I'm making notes on my new novel. So he took this notebook with him to the concert. And just decided, while I'm here, something just came to me. I'm going to write it down. That's one of the things that you don't see too many people doing much anymore. I actually used to do it. I used to have a small notebook that I would carry with me and I would write things down in it. And then I realized that my notes were so cryptic that I couldn't make any sense of them. But that's kind of one of the reasons that I will talk things over to myself. I will, I will work them out in a plan over and over again until I get it concrete before I'll sit down at and timeline and start working things out. I guess you could say, you keep writing something long enough and it becomes concrete. Here I work out the idea until it becomes concrete. Alex Haley. Was it Alex Haley? No, Alex Haley wrote Roots. There was a writer who wrote the novels Hotel and Airport, and I have to look it up. Arthur Haley, not Alex Haley. Arthur Haley. Arthur Haley wrote the novels Airport, and he wrote the novel Hotel. He actually wrote a lot of novels. He was he was originally from England, and he lived in Canada. And those two novels were probably his most familiar. But the last novel he wrote was in 1997. His novels were famous. Most of them had just one title, but had one word in the title. But he was really famous for his writing style. And what he would do is he would start writing like a page of text for the novel. And then he would look at it and he would go back and retype it and edit it as he went. And then he would go through it again and think it out. And he would retype it again. And he would do it again and again until he no longer needed to write anymore. And then he would go to another page and do the same thing. And somebody that I had read this, the person who had actually wrote this said that in a day, he would only write about 500 words in a day, 2 pages of manuscript. But he had edited everything so perfectly that by the time he took those 2 pages and put it on the pile, that was it. He never went back and re-edited the novel. They said, yeah, it was slow going. I mean, he was only doing 500 words a day. But as I've pointed out, if you do only 500 words a day, that's 182,500 words in a year. And most of his novels were not 182,000 words long. So he could actually write a novel in 6 to 9 months and then send it off to his publisher, completed. That was it. It was like, it's done, and they'd go through and they really would not have to do a lot of editing. I kind of do that with scenes. I'll latch on to something and I'll just keep going over it in my head until I have everything kind of figured out. Because one of the things that you have to worry about when you're doing a scene is that when you're setting stuff up, you have to start asking yourself, well, knowing what I already know about my kids, knowing what I already know about the world that we live in, why can't this happen? And it's an interesting, it's an interesting thing, because you're trying to avoid all the loopholes and all the plot holes that could pop up. A perfect example of that is the Polar Express. I have mentioned from time to time that the first time I started putting the Polar Express together was like in August of 2011. I worked out the basic flight. I knew where the kids were going to start from, and I knew where they were going to go and where they were going to stop and stuff like that. But there were incidences that happened within the flight that, as I went along, I said, well, knowing what I know about the world of magic now, can you really do that? Can that really happen? And so the flight has slowly evolved over time into what it'll eventually show up on the page today. I don't have to do much work on the Polar Express anymore. In fact, I think I made like the last major ideal changes to it probably at least a year ago. Because at that point you're like, okay, I've got all the ducks in a row, and they're laid out and they're marching toward the pond and they're all happy. They're happy ducks. Yeah. So, but that's what you have to do, especially when you're dealing with something like magic. One of the reasons why I keep notes from my old novels is because I'll go back and look at them and see stuff that I've done. And I understand that some of the things that I'm talking about won't show up for several novels to come. In fact, I have said that there's something that happened in the first novel that you're not going to hear the resolution to until the very last novel. It's, you'll find out what actually happened, something that happened. And that's how you have to kind of look at things. I know there's a lot of people that say, well, I don't like the plot. I like the pants. I like to figure this out as I go along. Yeah, that's great. I've got almost 1 million words written. That is not something you just sit down and start doing. I think even Stephen King, after a while, had to put in some plotting for the Dark Tower series because it's such an immense series. And then, of course, he basically ends it where he's a character in his own novels, you know. And then you find out it's a cyclitic story. So when we get the dark novel series with Idris Elba and Matthew McConaughey in it, we're actually going to pick up where the last novel ended, which is where they went back to the very beginning again. It's cyclic, and he's found things that are going to help him on his search for the Dark Man. So, you know, you have to work these things out in your head. Otherwise, you just get really stupid. And people go, why didn't they do that? One of the questions I get all the time from one particular person is, why doesn't the school do anything to bad kids? Well, they probably do. You know, I don't really go into detail about kids who are getting detention unless it happens to my kids, because no one really cares to find out about everyone getting detention. We do know some of the teachers are rather extreme with their detention. They can get kind of crazy. But the focus of the novel is really on Annie and Carrie and the people around them and how they interact with them. They're not really about a day in the life of Emma Nielsen. We don't really want to go into Morgan Tower and find out, you know, what she's doing with her two roommates, because frankly, no one gives a shit. What we do here is when she decided to sit herself down and take a massive penalty because she realized just what a crazy bitch she was being out on the track, and we know why she was being a crazy bitch. And she's sort of put that behind her these days. I say sort of because, you know, there's always that possibility that something is lingering there in her heart. We never know. We'll find out in time. So maybe she still has feelings. Chances are, you don't know. But Emma doesn't have a boyfriend yet, so maybe this year she'll get a boyfriend. She needs one. But right now, the excerpts we're getting into, we're going to find out. This will be the one instance where we do find out how things went with another character. You are actually going to find out how her summer went, because Carrie asked her. You know, well, first she's asked Carrie already. You know, how was your summer, and then he says, "How was your summer?" And we'll find out a little bit about her family life. So that'll be an interesting change. I mean, we know a little bit about Penny. We know a little bit about Alex. We don't know that much about Jario. But, yeah, we're going to get to find out just how Emma handled her summer vacation. And some of the fun things that she did. You know. So, makes me want to move to Colorado. That's what I love. I love looking up this stuff. So, and in the future, I do know that there's going to be instances. In another novel, there will be an instance where you're actually going to get to see Deanna's house. Yes, you are going to visit Deanna's house, and you're going to see what it looks like. And that's because my kids are going to visit her. So, there you go. They're going to break out and go to her house, and you'll get to see how a seer lives. Not much different than us. She probably knows when a package is being delivered, though. I don't know. Maybe she's like, yeah, opens the door as the mail guy's there, and he's like, "Oh, madame, here's your mail." He's like, "How do you know that?" "Oh, I just sensed that you were there, you know." But you'll get to see a little bit of her life. There'll be a couple of instructors you'll get to see how they live. It'll be interesting. They don't have magical homes like the Weasleys. There's, you know, the dishes are not doing themselves, you know, cleaning themselves and stuff like that. There aren't magical clocks. their houses are pretty much like ours, except for the most part, they have to phony shit up so it looks like they're tied into the energy grid and stuff like that. For the most part, they have to hide in plain sight. So, they have bills they got to pay. They have things that they've got to do, especially if you live in a city. But they have ways of getting around that and making it look like, oh, I'm not really using a lot of power and stuff like that. For example, most of the instructors don't spend any money on air conditioning. They don't need to, and they don't spend a lot of money on heating. And if they get asked, it's like, oh, I keep my thermostats at 60 degrees during the winter, and I keep everything is well insulated, so I don't have to worry about heat. When in reality, they just use magic to keep the inside nice and toasty. That's the thing. So it's an interesting concept, and it's one of the things that, as time goes on, I have to figure out how to get them to hide in plain sight. There are ways to do it. The easiest way is just for the foundation to sneak into someone's computer all the time and adjust the numbers and make payments and stuff where they have to, so they can protect some of their witches. But for the most part, yeah, if you know how to game the system, you can get around it. Yeah, it's like I put solar panels on my roof, so I'm selling energy back to you. You could do that. So, yeah, just a quick one here. I didn't want to really take up a lot of time. I have to, like I said, I'll be busy tomorrow. Sunday, not so much. Maybe I'll get some more writing in. Sunday is Monday. Next Monday, I get back into TV recapping for the next, oh Christ. I want to say for the next 8 weeks, and it will be. I'll be recapping until middle of April, and then I'll take a couple of weeks off, and then Sense8 will start playing up in. Sense8 will start playing up in. End of the first Friday in May, and then I'll be busting my butt all through May to get those out. Because then in June I'll have to do Orphan Black, and that'll lead into Fear the Walking Dead, and that'll lead into probably Black Mirror, and who knows what else after that. At least I won't have to do Orphan Black again after this year, so sad, I know. What can I say? My sistras, they are going away. But yeah, there's a lot of stuff that we have to do. And that just reminds me is that one of the episodes I have to recap, I'm probably going to be late on the recap because I'll be watching the episode in Indiana, and then driving back like on Wednesday. So I may or may not get it out on Tuesday. It really just depends. I don't know. That's going to be insane. Geez, I don't look forward to going back to Indiana. And in fact, I have to make plans because I'm actually going back there in about 2 weeks. Actually, about 3 weeks. I'll be going back to Indiana. Yeah, I know. that's something I really am not looking forward to, honestly. So, but yeah, about 3 more weeks, I go back to Indiana. What can I say? So, I think I'll let this go at this point. Just wanted to reach out, do a quick touch, talk about some of the things that I'm doing, which are things that, for the most part, you've already heard. But hey, who knows? Maybe you like the sound of my voice. I don't know. Do you? Maybe you just like to hear me ramble on and talk, because sometimes I do have some interesting things I want to say. So, coming up, it's almost 25 minutes. Who cares? It's that time. It's a little after 8. It's almost 8:10 right now, so it's almost time for me to have my snack, my meal, I guess you could say. But yeah, I'll get this up, and I'll get it out, and I'll get it blogged. I'll probably get it up on YouTube, and then I'll put it out tomorrow morning. So, which I'm saying tomorrow morning, but you're probably going to be reading this tomorrow morning, which is this morning. That's funny how time works, isn't it? Okay. Take care, everyone. Bye.